Hi there. I'm setting up a router in my lab environment this evening and thought I'd share with you how I go about doing it. I'm using VyOS as my router and using a Citrix Xen server as my hypervisor in the back end. Now I've made a similar video using pfSense as my router, but since then I've been playing with VyOS and it seems to be a little easier to set up, as well as the network throughput seems to be a bit better as well. So having said that, let me show you what I've got here. So we're going to set up a virtual router here with three interfaces. One on a 10.10.1 network segment, the other one a 10.10.2, and the other one a 10.10.10 network segment. Now on my Citrix Xen server, I already have a couple servers set up on it attached to virtual switches. So I've got three virtual switches here as well. With off the third virtual switch, I've got a workstation here. I'm going to set up a continuous ping back and forth between the different servers here, as well as the workstation to the servers. Now, because I don't have the router set up yet, you're going to see destination host unreachable or a timeout as far as the pinging goes until we've got this router built. But meanwhile, let me show you where you can get this VyOS software at. You can visit this site called VyOS.io, and from here navigate to the download section. Select the stable version. Now you have a couple choices here. Either you can download the actual ISO and install the software from scratch, or in my case here, I'm going to go ahead and download the OVA and import the virtual machine into my Xen server. Since it's there, why not choose it, since it'll make the whole install faster. Alright, so I've already gone ahead and downloaded this file already, so let me go ahead and switch over to my Xen server. You'll see from my Xen server here are the two domain controllers I have powered on, as well as that workstation. These are my three switches that I've already made. Again, the .1 switch I have named here is connected to DC1. The .2 I have connected to domain controller 2, and the third one, the 10.10.10, I have connected to my workstation. These are, for the time being, not connected in any other way, so there's no communication between them. So you'll see that if I switch over to my domain controller here, I have a continuous ping running from it to the second domain controller, and of course it's timing out. And we got the same scenario from the second domain controller trying to reach the first one. It is timing out, and the workstation is trying to reach both of them by way of a ping, and you'll see on it that it's timing out as well. So let's go ahead at this point and import the OVA file that I've already downloaded. So I'm going to select import and browse to the location I saved it. Here's the OVA, and select open. Next, and at this point it's going to attach to my Xen 2. Next, and then select the local storage. Next. As far as the network goes, I'm going to configure this first NIC to attach to the 10.10.10 network. That's really the only change I'm making here in the configuration initially. Select next. Next again. Leave this default to don't use operating system fix-up, and select next. And we're going to configure the first NIC to use DHCP, at least during this initial setup part. And next, and finish. So at this point down here in the lower right hand corner, you see that it's busy importing the image. I just want to mention here at the same time that I'm using Xen Server 7.0. This will work also on 6.5 and probably the earlier releases as well. But again, using 7.0 as far as my Xen server here goes. So as soon as the import is finished, we'll see the VyOS device appear over here in the left hand side. So we'll just give it a second or two and it should appear. Okay, here's our VyOS router right here. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, but before we turn it on, we're going to add the additional two interfaces. So add interface. We're going to leave this one at 10.10.1. Add the third interface. This one's going to be the 10.10.2. Add. Okay, so we've got 3 interfaces now on this router, and the MAC addresses we're going to pay particular attention to. DC, F5, and D5 are the last set of numbers there. Okay, so with this we're going to switch over to console and power it up. Now, since the operating system is already installed on it, the only thing we really have to do is let this boot up all the way, log in, and then start the configuration. So we'll take the defaults as far as going to the KVM console and let it finish booting up. Now, when it finishes booting up, it's going to come to a login prompt. That login prompt will ask for name and password. The default is going to be VyOS lowercase, as well as the password is going to be VyOS in lowercase. So we'll wait to get to that point and log into it and then start the configuration. Okay, so we're at the login here. And remember, the name password is VyOS. So we'll type in VyOS, and again VyOS. Okay, what I want to do at this point here is just confirm the configuration in terms of the MAC address and the assigned Ethernet NICs that it thinks it has here. So I'm going to do a show interfaces system. And with this we see that Ethernet 0 has the DC, Ethernet 1 has F5, hit the space bar, and Ethernet 2 has D5. And that pretty much follows the way we had initially installed or added the network cards. So by looking again over at networking here, that D5 was the last one we just looked at. NIC 1 was F5 and the NIC 0 was DC. Okay, let's switch back over to the console. And let's go ahead and start the configuration. So we type in configure. Okay, so now we're in configuration mode. We're going to type in set interfaces Ethernet ETH0 address. This is going to be the 10.10.10.1/24. That's a subnet mask. And I'm just going to arrow up and change that Ethernet 0 to the number 1. Arrow back over to the side here, and this is going to be our .1 segment. Hit enter, arrow up again, backspace here, change that to 2, come back over, change that to the 2 network segment, and enter. Okay, that easy to get the 3 interfaces configured with IP addresses. We're going to go ahead and commit the changes. And we're going to save them. Now we're going to type in show interfaces Ethernet, and it shows us the IP addresses that we've assigned. So for Ethernet 0, we're on the 10.10.10 assigned to the IP address of .1. That's our first NIC. Ethernet 1, that's a 10.10.1 network, and that's the F5. And Ethernet 2, that's the D5 on the .2 segment. Okay, so at this point here, it should be active. I'm going to go back over to my domain controller, and we should be seeing replies, and we do. So we have connectivity now from this first domain controller to the second. Switch over to the second domain controller. and we're getting replies back from that as well. So we got connectivity the other direction, and from the workstation we're getting replies back from the workstation, both domain controllers. Alright, it's that simple and easy to do. Just took a matter of probably just 5 minutes to actually do the actual configuration of the router after importing it, if even that long. Alright, there you go.